Hello, everyone. It's Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni, live from Canada. Thank you so much, Indo Nepal Association, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And this is an amazing, platform where we can share about Ayurveda and how everybody can benefit from, following certain principles. So, thank you so much for this opportunity. I would love to talk a little bit about the topic. Before I start with the topic, I am Dr. Manjiri Nadkarni. I'm based in Canada and I practice Ayurveda. And one of my main focuses of practice is food allergies, food intolerances, as well as food sensitivities. And this is something that we see quite commonly in today's world. Sorry, I'm having a lot of glitches going on today with tech. um, Even like the logins have been crazy, just logging in into different apps. So if you are watching this live, please say a quick hi. If you have any questions for me, you can post the questions in the comments and I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you have. So one of the most overlooked things in our practice as Ayurvedic doctors, Ayurvedic physicians, is the fact that the food has tremendously changed over the past centuries. And the food that is mentioned in the texts, the properties of food that are mentioned in the texts, what are in the text and what are found today are very different, right? So they're very different. And the reason is because the farming practices have changed. A lot has changed with certain genetic modification of certain vegetables or plants or grains. And that itself has created a scenario where we have to start understanding the food today. We have to really take time, we have to really understand the food today from a different perspective, a perspective of how is it really beneficial to us and what are the best farming practices. Not just about getting an example, is not just about getting ghee, or everybody talks about ghee, or everybody talks about clarified butter, but how is it really made, right? Is it really light to digest because it's been cultured, or is it just a store bought butter that you buy and you make it into ghee? Because those are two very different things and the digestibility is also going to change accordingly, right? So one of the most important things to understand in terms of food allergies is, food allergies are very real. They are hidden a lot of the times. There is no classical sign of a food allergy unless it is an anaphylactic allergy, where that okay, your throat is shutting down because you eat something. It could be either allergy to an egg, it could be allergy to a soy product, it could be allergy to shellfish is very common for anaphylactic allergies. Peanuts, tree nuts are very common for anaphylactic allergies. So if you have a severe allergy, then you can understand the signs and symptoms, right? So for those logging on a little bit late, we're talking about Ayurveda, we're talking about food allergies, we're also talking about how food has changed in the past centuries. And when we look at the core texts, right, when we look at core texts of Ayurveda, we look at milk, and milk is supposed to be one of the most satmya. Cow milk is supposed to be something that is compatible to all our bodies. But the fact is, in today's world, it is not compatible to our bodies a lot of the times. Even when you look at children, if you see a lot of clients who are children, you will also see that some children are having a lot of congestion because of dairy products. You can see a lot of children are having asthma like symptoms because of even cow milk, right? And this is something I see very much in Canada in my practice. And as soon as you take the food out, as soon as you're taking the milk out of their diet, you start seeing a lot of good results, and their health starts getting restored back, right? So those are a few important considerations that we'll be talking about today. Again, if you are watching this live, say a quick hi. If you are watching this as a replay, you can post questions and I will be here to answer all those questions. So what exactly are food allergies? What a food allergy is a reaction of your immune system to a certain food, right? So an example is if you look at allergies to tree nuts like peanut or almonds or cashews, your body is giving a significant response to a food which it thinks that it is an invader, and it starts protecting yourself, or it starts reacting by shutting down your throat or giving you a lot of rashes. So there are different levels on which the allergy can be displayed. Not every allergy is anaphylactic, right? But you could have hives, you could start itching, you could have a lot of stomach issues, you could have diarrhea or severe constipation as well, or you could have a lot of pain in your abdomen. So one thing to understand is allergies related to food are very obscure, right? They are not as easy to diagnose, and they take a fair bit of testing. They also take a fair bit of tracking of the diet, tracking of the meals, to be able to really understand whether you are reacting to a certain food or not, right? So there are three considerations when we talk about food allergies. Food allergies are where your body has a significant response to the food, right? And it could be a severe response which can result in rashes. I had a client who had an egg diet, so she had eggs every single day for 2 weeks, and all she ate for breakfast, lunch, as well as dinner was eggs, right? And this was a weight loss fat diet that she was trying out, which broke her into hives. So she was struggling with overall body hives. There were a lot of rashes going on her skin, and this was the result of an egg allergy, right? In my practice, I also see, as I mentioned, a lot of children. Some of them come to me with skin issues, some of them come to me with recurrent diarrhea, right? Some of them come to me with lack of focus, lack of concentration, where they just cannot sit still, and they are diagnosed as either ADHD or hyperactive kids, and they are going to be put on medications like Ritalin. So one simple thing is, you have to make sure that you are always checking the diet and making sure the diet is what is working for the client's body or the patient's body. Or if you are somebody struggling with your own health, you have to make sure that it is compatible with your own body, right? So that is one of the most important consideration. Now, understanding the difference between food allergies, food sensitivities, and food intolerances is another very important thing to understand. So food allergies are when there is a significant response of the immune system on ingestion of the food, and that can manifest in different levels. Food sensitivity is more a digestion related response. You might not get a lot of overall body symptoms. You might get more gastrointestinal symptoms. An example is if you eat a certain food and suddenly you start feeling a lot of burning sensation in your stomach. If you eat a certain food and you start getting a lot of cramping in your abdomen, if you eat a certain food and you get constipated or diarrhea, those are mainly signs of food sensitivities, right? So a lot of the signs of food sensitivities are going to be milder than allergies, and they're going to be more related to your gastrointestinal tract. The third type is a food intolerance, right? Where you cannot tolerate the certain food. And this can manifest because you are not producing a certain enzyme which is required for digestion of the food. The most common intolerance that we see today is lactose intolerance, which manifests as a result of the lack of the enzyme lactase. Lactase is an enzyme that is really necessary to digest lactose, which is the milk sugar. And in an absence of lactase, you are not digesting the milk sugar, lactose. This creates a lot of bloating. This is also going to create a lot of gastric disturbance. This is also going to create a diarrhea like scenario. Thank you so much, Dr. Ram. Thank you so much, Dr. Vijay. Thank you for watching. So, this is the difference between food allergy, food intolerance, as well as a food sensitivity. Now, why are we intolerant, or why are we allergic, or why are we sensitive to certain foods, right? So, here there are three different components. The first component can be the food itself. A food that has undergone any kind of genetic modification is not going to be easily assimilated into the body, right? Because the nature of the food itself has changed, the prakriti of the food itself has changed, and it no longer has those attributes that it used to have, right? And we are made up of our genes, we are made up of our prakriti. We get all these genes from our ancestors. And if your ancestors had a certain diet and they could digest a certain food, but now the food has completely changed, excuse me, you're no longer able to digest that food, right, or process that food properly, and that can create a lot of sensitivity or allergy to the food itself. Now, the second consideration is your own digestive system, your own Agni, right? We talk about Agni as the main source of biotransformation in the body. And this biotransformation is vital to our existence on the planet, right? So, anytime we eat, the food that we are eating has to transform into our body components. So, whether you're eating an apple, or whether you're eating a chicken, or whether you're eating a piece of cheese, you are going to break that food down into tiny molecules, whether it's amino acids or it's carbohydrates, depending on what you're ingesting. You're going to break it down into tiny molecules, and those are going to assimilate it into your own body as your own body components, right? So amino acids from a protein that you've ingested are going to break down, and eventually they're going to form your muscle mass, which is also your mausadhatu. And they can also support the formation of different neurotransmitters or anything that requires these amino acids in the body, right? So if your Agni, which is your fire, your digestive capacity, your enzymes, they are not functioning well, you are not going to be able to break these foods down. You are not going to be able to assimilate, like break down the foods and then assimilate them. And then this process of biotransformation that needs to happen is somehow incomplete, right? One thing that's going to create is a lot of undigested food, right? The food that has not reached its final form. And one of the best explanations for such things is ama, right? When we talk about ushpano alpabalatvena dhatum adyam apachitam. So whenever there is this lack of digestive fire, whereas there is this mild digestion, or your digestive fire is not functioning well, where you're not secreting enough enzymes, where you're not being able to break down these digestive enzymes, right? So the Agni has become really weak. And the first tissue which had to, the annarasa, or the food that you have digested, forms the juice of all the food, which is known as annarasa, which has then to be converted into the rasadhatu, which is the first tissue that is going to feed all the other layers, or all the other layers, tissue layers, until the reproductive layer known as the shukradhatu. And then a part of it forms ojas, which is also connected with your immunity, right? So if you are not breaking food down well, if your food isn't getting converted into rasadhatu, right, or even the annarasa, there is an incomplete biotransformation. This forms something known as ama in Ayurveda, and this can start circulating in your body, creating a lot of heaviness, sluggishness, and wherever it sees any weakness in the tissues, right, it is going to attach there and start creating different kinds of health conditions. So the weakness of the tissues, again, from an Ayurvedic perspective, can be understood as kavaigunya, right? In the strotas of the body, wherever in the channels of the body, if you see any kind of abnormalcy, if you see any kind of weakness, that is where it's going to attack first. And that is also how you are going to experience different symptoms with a certain food. And that is why people exhibit different signs and symptoms of food allergies or sensitivities, right? And not every person has exactly the same signs. So, this is how the pathological process happens when it comes to food sensitivities or food allergies or food intolerances. First is, the food has changed. So that could be one cause that you have to really look for. The second cause is your own Agni, your own digestive apparatus is not functioning well. That is why you're unable to secrete these digestive enzymes. That is why you're unable to break down those foods. That is why you're unable to assimilate those foods. That is why you're unable to make factors required for your body, which can create further weakness in the body, which can create further lowered immunity as well. And when the biotransformation of this juice from your food is not taking place completely, it is not going to form all the seven layers properly, right? And if you're not forming all these seven layers of the food properly, you're not going to feed the vital tissue known as ojas or vitality, right? Which is known as the eighth, which is the final stage of transformation. After the Shukra Dhatu, a part is going to feed, your vitality. So that does not happen. And this is one reason why your own immunity is weakened through a poor digestion, right? Now, those are a few, considerations. So the third part is an immunity. The first one we talked about was the changes in the food. The second, we talked about digestion. Now, immunity is a very interesting concept. In Ayurveda, we talk about ojas giving us a lot of strength, a lot of protection, a lot of resilience to spring back from any kind of diseases. But if you are already having a body that is full of toxins, if you are already ingesting food that is maybe contaminated with bacteria, or if your own digestive apparatus, as I mentioned, is incapable of fighting with this. An example, simple example would be, if you have lowered stomach acid, you are unable to neutralize the bacteria that could come in through the food, right? And that is when you're going to be more prone to food poisoning and conditions like that. So here again, your immune system is not going to function well because your immune system is unable to fight with the bacteria or viruses, which it should have been naturally capable of. And sometimes this immune system is hyper stimulated if you're continuously eating certain foods that are not working well for you or that are triggering certain responses in the body. You can have a hyper functioning immune system where you start reacting to everything that you eat. And I see this a lot in my practice. A lot of my practice looks at food sensitivities. A lot of my practice looks at digestive issues. That's one thing I specialize in. And with most people, I see that, if you go through any poor diet, poor lifestyle, what ends up happening is your immune system starts either hyper functioning because you're constantly bringing in things that are provoking it, or your immune system starts not functioning well. So the function of the immune system is lowered. So you're not forming the factors required for immunity. That this is the second case scenario of immunity. The third case scenario in terms of immunity is there is a malfunction. And malfunction of this immune system can be understood as autoimmune conditions, right? Our body is not supposed to attack our own body, but you will notice that in certain situations, which are known as autoimmune conditions, your body starts attacking itself, right? So, this is a condition which is known as autoimmune condition, and there are a lot of autoimmune diseases associated with this condition. Hashimoto's thyroiditis is very common. There are lots of different conditions that you are going to experience as autoimmune conditions. They're extremely common in today's world, and they happen because of malfunction of this immune system. So we talked about the three considerations. Now, what are some conditions that are associated with food allergies, food sensitivities, and food intolerances? So in today's world, certain foods can be very common to identify with food allergies, like anaphylactic reaction, extremely common to identify. If you look at celiac disease, which comes from gluten intolerance, extremely easy because when you do the testing, you see a lot of intestinal damage. You can do a gluten challenge test and, you react on that. So certain conditions you can 100% attribute directly to food allergies, but there are also different conditions, like skin conditions, for example, where a lot of people go undiagnosed. They have symptoms, right? But they're not sure what the condition is. And there are so many of such conditions where there is no proper diagnosis. Then you have to look back on the pathology of what's happening, how is it formed, right? So this is again a very important consideration, that food sensitivities, food allergies can affect different parts of the body as well. Autoimmune conditions can affect different parts of the body as well, and these can be interlinked together, right? So food is one of the most important things in our life. It is the one of the three main pillars. It is vital to our existence. But eating foods that are not compatible to your body, right? And often we talk about food compatibility in Ayurveda, where we talk about mixing certain ingredients together or avoiding certain ingredients together, like never eat milk with fish, right? So again, if you are someone who's following poor dietary combinations, an example is you constantly have, either milk with fish, or you're constantly having milkshakes or mango lassi, which is very excuse me, popular in, the summer season. These are all categorized as viruddhana, or foods having opposite qualities, and they are going to create a generalized weakness in your body. They are going to overwhelm your immune system. They're not going to get digested well, and they're going to create a plethora of conditions associated, right? So again, if you are having any health issues, whether it's your digestive system, whether it is skin conditions, whether it is thyroid conditions, whether it is autoimmune conditions, the number one thing you have to look at is food. Are you eating foods that are compatible to you? And are you eating foods that are compatible with each other? Right? So, if you are eating foods that your body cannot handle or process well, an example could be gluten, right? So, gluten, okay, maybe I need to explain a little bit further here. So, gluten is a protein that's found in wheat, rye, spelt, and barley, right? So, wheat is a common staple in today's diet. So, if you look at the Indian diet, if you look at the Nepalese diet, if you look at Canadian diet, where I'm living currently, bread or wheat or noodles, they're extremely common in our diets, right? Chapatis, rotis, naan, bread, maida or all purpose flour, all products, typically you can find in the grocery store are made with wheat, right? And wheat has this protein called, gluten, right? What makes it sticky. That's what makes it bind together. And the proteins actually are called gliadin. So there are different components of the protein which can then create allergies in the system, or which our body does not respond to favorably. And you could have different symptoms ranging from stomach issues to joint pain, skin rashes, right? So there are celiac related conditions where gluten is the common culprit. There is non celiac gluten intolerance as well, where gluten is another culprit, where there is no celiac disease, but it's creating a plethora of issues in the body. So always, if you are unable to find answers, if you're taking medicines, right? If you are being treated for a certain condition and you're not feeling any relief, please go back to the basics and look at the food that you're eating. See if the food is compatible to you. See if the food is compatible within itself, right? And those are important things that you have to understand and implement for your own health. Now, food allergies to or food sensitivities, or taking foods away from your diet that are bothering or creating issues with your diet, right? So if you are creating issues, within your body because you're eating a certain food, that has to be stopped. And if you look at Ayurveda, the number one line of treatment, the first line of treatment is always known as Nidan Parivarjan. So you have to stop eating foods that are creating issues in your body, right? If you are eating gluten, which is causing an issue in your body, you're not going to get relief even if you take all the medication or start strengthening your Agni, because your Agni is not going to function well, right? So the number one thing to do is identify what exactly is it that you're reacting to, right? And look at the root cause. Always, go back to the root cause. Always look at the root cause, that what is lowering your Agni, right? So these are two considerations you have to look at. So the number one is, always find the foods that are creating issues for you. Some examples are, gluten causing a lot of digestive inflammation. When it comes to congestions, when it comes to sinusitis, when it comes to postnasal drip, when it comes to skin conditions, the most common culprit is dairy products, especially in the Western world, right? So in Canada, we are living in a country which is known as Anup Desh, which is, lots of forests, lots of water. So essentially, it is a land where there is a lot of kapha energy, right? So kapha dosh is dominant in the environment as well as the bodies of the people who live here. And having milk which has kapha promoting qualities is going to create further issues. And this is also one common reason that I see that skin allergies, digestive issues, milk allergies are extremely common. So a lot of digestive issues, skin conditions here can talk about milk allergies. I'm going to take a quick question. So Shreyas is asking, gynecomastia के लिए कोई medicine है ma'am? Tell me the solution. So in Ayurveda, there is not one herb that you can start taking, right, Shreyas? So you have to go and consult with an Ayurvedic doctor because you need to find out what's going on, right? Gynecomastia typically can happen because you're having excess of the female hormone estrogen in your body. You have to find out where you're getting this estrogen from, right? Or if there is low testosterone and the estrogen is completely unopposed. So herbs will help, lifestyle factors will help, but you have to find the root cause. You can't just keep taking a medication to, block maybe the estrogen receptors. It's not going to work for a long time. The best suggestion I can give you is, reach out to your closest Ayurvedic doctor, and he or she might be able to help you find a permanent solution rather than, searching on Google or trying to look for quick answers, right? So that's one thing to do. Going back to the topic, yeah. So Nidan Parivarjan is the number one topic. Number one, yeah, Kanchana or Gugul Arogya Vardhini would definitely work, but Ayurvedic medicines are not supplements, they are not something that you can take without understanding whether they're accurate for your body type or not, right? So you can't just go off the shelf and start popping in, Kanchana or Google or Arogya Vardhini. Like, these are medications, these are potent Ayurvedic medications, that have to be taken under supervision of an expert who's trained in Ayurvedic medicine. So they are not over the counter. Like, it's not a vitamin. You can't just pick vitamin off the shelf, which you can naturally, you can't pick it like vitamin off the shelf, right? So it's not the best practice. It may not work for you, right? So please seek a doctor who can help you. You will find a permanent solution, right? So, going back to food allergies, food sensitivities, number one thing is to try and avoid, right, any food that is causing issues with you. Gluten, as I mentioned, can cause a lot of gastric inflammation, lots of digestive distress, lot of congestions, lot of sinusitis can be created by milk or milk related issues. Again, when it comes to milk, there are three main components you have to look at. There is the one, milk sugar or lactose, which you could be intolerant, or there are two milk proteins. There is whey as well as casein. And this casein typically is slightly modified when it comes to the milk present in the Western world, right? So there is the beta casein A2, which is easily digestible. That's found in the Gir cows and that's found in majority of India. But if you're looking at Canada or the Western world, you can see a lot of the casein is A2, A1, which is not easy to digest, right? So that is how you could be reacting to casein, you could be reacting to whey, or you could be reacting to lactose. So these are three main considerations to look at. Now, how can somebody find if they have food sensitivities or food allergies? Number one thing is to always keep a dietary track of everything that you're eating, right? So if you keep a journal where you're writing down everything that you eat, and if you keep a log of your symptoms on the side, you can take this diary, you can take this journal to an experienced Ayurvedic doctor, and he or she can better guide you as to what exactly you're reacting to, right? And sometimes you can also start correlating it yourself. So if you see that you had a glass of milk at bedtime and suddenly you had the runs and you had to go to the washroom 2 3 times, and this kept happening for the 3 or 4 days that you were drinking milk in the past, right? And you've been having diarrhea for a long time, so this could be one cause, right? So then you can stop this milk for the next 3 4 days and see if you find some amount of relief. The same with gluten. If you're eating a lot of, wheat rotis or chapatis, right? What you can do is you can stop having wheat for a certain time and maybe switch over to rice flour roti or bajra or jawar, right? Anything that does not have gluten for a certain while, and see if your symptoms are improving in that time, right? So that is one thing to try to do. Now, once you have identified what you're reacting to, you have taken it out of the diet, the second part becomes getting your digestion back on track, right? So again, there are various herbs, there are various formulas, that can bring your digestion back. So strengthening your digestion can be done by Lavan Bhaskar, Churana, Trikatu. So there are so many Ayurvedic formulations that work on your digestion. I don't want to name all of them, but try to have simple practices that will strengthen your digestion as well. An example is, eat in a completely non-distracted environment. Sit down and eat. Don't eat in front of your TV. Chew your food extremely well, right? Make sure you're focusing on the food. So your body will naturally get cues from your brain that you are eating, and you will start secreting the necessary enzymes required for digestion. And this is one practice that is going to ensure that your digestion stays on track. The second thing you can do is eat at fixed times. Don't graze around, so your breakfast time, your lunch time, your dinner time should be kept same, every single day. That will help regulate your digestion. And don't eat too late, right? A lot of the times, people have dinner at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, and then they go to bed at maybe 12. And this is a very common practice in the Eastern world, right? So in Canada, a lot of the meal times are really early. So dinner is done by 6 o'clock in the evening. But if you look at India or Nepal, because of the busy lifestyle that we have, after work, you're reaching home and you don't have dinner till, 9 or 10. And that is really late, right? So when the sun is at its peak, an example is afternoon, that's when your digestion is the strongest. And as soon as there is sunset outside, you don't have a lot of digestive capacity. So, eating heavier meals really late at night is the one thing to be avoided to strengthen your digestion, right? You can take herbs for supporting digestion, but lifestyle practices are non negotiable if you want to be healthy in the long term. So, sit in a quiet place. Chew your food well, eat, make sure your meal times are fixed, make sure you're not grazing or snacking between your meals, right? Make sure you're not eating too late at night. So these are certain practices that are really going to support your digestion. The other factor when it comes to supporting your digestion is stress management. We're living in a world where the pandemic is taking over our lives, right? We're all going through a lot of changes in this changing world, which rapidly, situations are getting harder to cope with. So those are a few things you can, definitely do is manage your stress levels. What you can do is you can meditate every single day or even go for a walk, be out in the nature, which will help calm you down, right? Shreyas, I will take that question. So Shreyas's question is not related to the topic, but I will talk about it. What food should you eat during gynecomastia, right? So gynecomastia is a condition where there is a lot of estrogen in your body, right? So estrogen is this female hormone. So the one thing you really need to do to be able to get rid of it is first, you know, besides the supplementation or Ayurvedic medicines, you need to detoxify your body of this excess estrogen. A few vegetables that can really work, because you're asking about the food. One thing you can definitely start having is cabbage or cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, kale. So kale, broccoli, Brussels sprouts are something we can find it here easily, but cabbage is fantastic. So cabbage or broccoli, you can definitely start having a lot in your diet. You should have a lot of leafy green vegetables cooked in your diet, because fiber can bind this excess estrogen and take it out of the body. Right. So Shreyas, that's what I'm saying. If you've taken the 3 months of allopathic treatment, contact an Ayurvedic doctor who's closest to you. Right. And that person will be able to really guide you. So yeah, but you're talking about gynecomastia. You're not really talking about Tribhuvan Kirti for cold. So, talk to an Ayurvedic doctor for this specific condition and they will be able to help you, right? So, if anybody else watching has any questions regarding food allergies or food sensitivities, I would be really happy to answer those. But strengthen your digestion, manage your stress levels. Going back to stress management, see your immune system, a lot of it, 80% it resides in your gut, right? Your gut is going to create a lot of these immune factors. And when we talk about your um, vata dosh in the body, right? Your apan vayu, the functioning of all these five pancha vayu is extremely important for our body. And when we talk about this pelvic realm, or when we talk about even digestive vayu, which is the saman vayu, the proper functioning of all five vayus or vata types of subtypes of vata dosh is extremely important. And one thing that can throw them out of balance is excess of stress, right? So excess of stress is going to create situations in the body where your body cannot um, handle the food well, where your digestive fire starts weakening. And that is why stress management is an extremely important topic when it comes to your health, right? And often we see that high cortisol, which is a product of chronic stress, is going to lower your immunity as well. So make sure that you're following a diet and lifestyle, that is compatible with you. So if you are a certain prakriti, always make sure you're following the diet for that prakriti. If you have a certain vikra going on, if you have an imbalance of vata dosh, pitta dosh, or kapha dosh, you can rectify that imbalance by following a diet necessary for the balancing of that dosh, and always work to strengthen your agni, right? The stronger your digestion is, the more you will start recovering from food allergies or sensitivities, right? So, um, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you so much for the time. And if you have questions, you can definitely, post it in the comments. Saraswat is good for stress, but also managing your lifestyle, right? You have to look at the root cause. See, Ayurveda goes beyond Ayurvedic medicines. Ayurveda is a science of living a healthy life. 100%, you take herbs, you take medicines that are necessary when you're going through challenges, or you take herbs to heal, but diet and lifestyle, as we say, ahar and vihar, are crucial aspects of Ayurveda, right? So try not to make Ayurveda an approach where it's like a substitute for an allopathic pill, right? So that's not the approach I use in my practice, and that is not the approach that I recommend. So always focus on the root cause. What's creating the issue? What are some factors that you can change? What needs to be changed, so 100% pathya is important, and pathya has to be followed, right? And pathya also is like your path, like what's good for your path, right? What's good for your life, that has to be followed as well. So a good lifestyle, a good exercise, working out, once for an hour every 4 days is not a better option, but every single day, if you have some movement, some activity, that helps proper circulation, that helps proper detoxification of your channels as well. So focusing on diet, focusing on proper lifestyle for you is extremely crucial, and not just focusing on Ayurvedic medications or looking for substitutions of allopathic medication for an Ayurvedic medicine. That's not like what I recommend. You have to completely change, right, your perception of what's going on. So thank you all for your time. Thank you all for this opportunity. If you have questions, please post it in the comments and I'll come back and answer those. Have a wonderful Sunday, everyone. Thanks and have a good one. Bye.